Rev up your engine! People always ask about GDI cleaning. Why is it needed? Well, in some cars, the gasoline direct injection pushes fuel directly into the cylinder. On a normal car, it pushes it on the fuel injectors on the intake, then it's sucked in the fuel over the intake valves. So guess what? The intake valves are cleaned by gasoline. It's actually a very good solvent. But on these GDI engines, all that gasoline is just forced into the engine cylinders itself. Now, it can clean the top of the valves. But that's not what you're worried about. It's where the valves seat in on the heads that get buildup. And with a GDI system, no fuel ever touches the inside. The reason they build up is because of a nasty thing called the PCV valve. When I was a kid, engines just vented to the atmosphere. They had a tube and a little bit of oil fumes would come out. Well, they said that's pollution. So instead, the PCV system takes the vapors from the crankcase, sends them back in the engine to burn them. But it sends them back in the engine through the intake. When we take the stupid cover off, on a normal car, the air comes in the intake here. The gasoline cleans the intake valves. But here, the only thing coming on the intake is the PCV valve, which has dirty crankcase vapors and a little bit of oil. If they're bad, they'll suck raw oil. But regardless, they still have a misting of oil. That oil will burn on the intake valves and create a buildup of carbon. You do need to clean them every once in a while, especially with an engine like this Kia that has 150,000 miles. But let me tell you the truth about this engine first. Now, he bought this thing used, got a good deal. He's put tons of mileage on it. But the original owner didn't get such a big deal. When it had 80-something thousand miles on it, the engine blew up because of the catalytic converter failure. Kia did rebuild this engine. So he ended up buying a car with 85,000 miles for $3,000 that had an engine that was rebuilt. So it's still in decent shape. But on the other hand, he's put a lot more miles on it, so it's time to clean the valves on it. A lot of guys say, oh, I'll throw it in the gas tank. That will not help a GDI system. Because I've already explained to you, that fuel just goes into the injectors and then sprayed with a GDI system right into the engine cylinder. It does not get on the intake, on the valves, where the buildup is. The only way you can do that is either by physically taking the engine apart and getting a sand blaster, and instead of using sand, you use walnut shells. You blast the carbon upwards. You can imagine that costs quite a bit of money. And in the case of Volkswagens, usually you gotta walnut blast them because they can get quarter, half-inch thick buildup of carbon. These aren't that bad, so a spray cleaner like this Lucas can work really well. The trick is to figure out how the heck are you gonna get it in the intake? Well, this is the easiest way. This vehicle and most lower priced vehicles have a brake booster that works on vacuum pressure. This hose goes to the intake. So you just take that off. Now getting it off is relatively easy. You just get a pair of pliers, pull it off. That side's being stinky, so we'll do the other side. That's being even stinkier, so we'll go the whole way to the end. Then we'll make this bigger and twist the hose. You hear it pop, and you can get it off. You gotta pull and wiggle it along. Finally, there we go. Then this just plugs in here. And you can spray the cleaner in directly. We'll start it up. Then we gradually spray cleaner in the hole. You notice the engine stalls, that's going to happen, so we got to rev it up a little. You got to compensate, so we're going to rev the engine up. Then we want to just let it idle and spray a bunch in. Now there's a ton of cleaner in there. It's stalled out with cleaner in it. Now we're gonna let it sit 10 or 15 minutes so it can soak a little bit. So while it's soaking, let's just look at this Kia Soul overall. You say beauty is in the eye of the beholder, all right? Some people think these things are boxy and weird looking. And some people think, hey, they're futuristic, I like them. Well, that's up to you. I personally think that they look like one of those cabs in that Schwarzenegger movie, Total Recall, that they're driving around on Mars. You know, so they're kind of futuristic looking, but on the plus side, for a little car, you got a lot of leg room, baby. Nice little trunk, but a lot of leg room. And this particular one The automatic tranny's got 150,000 miles on it, still shifts fine, but do realize, as I said, he bought it secondhand for $3 grand in the previous owner at 80,000 miles. The engine blew up because the catalytic converter went bad. They replaced the cat and they rebuilt the engine. So the engine didn't even go 100,000 miles. So that's telling you, quality, not the greatest in the world. But you got a rebuilt engine with a car that runs good for $3,000. Hey, on the open highway, he gets 34 miles a gallon. And in town he gets 29. You can't complain about a boxy vehicle that isn't that aerodynamic. It's pretty good gas mileage. And it is a more modern engine. It's got a timing chain, not a belt. You don't have to worry about that. It is a 2012. And you can see the usual lack of quality in Kia. They didn't paint the plastic that well, so the plastic paint's fading off. Not the greatest of cars, you can see. The engine blew up at 80-something thousand miles. But he got it for $3 grand with the rebuilt engine. And he's put like 70,000 miles on it so far, and it's still running for him perfectly fine. He just decided it was time to get the GDI system, clean the valves, because he watches my videos. Now this thing has about 130 horsepower. It's not a racing machine, but it's a smaller light machine. Only, like I say, don't believe the garbage you read on the internet. I just Googled it and said, oh, a Kia Soul should last 200,000 miles. Baloney. This engine didn't even make it 90,000 miles before it blew up. So don't believe the advertising hype that people throw out. Believe what Scotty tells. If you can find one that had the engine rebuilt and you're buying it for $3 grand and it runs good, not a bad deal. But if it's still got the original engine and it's got 40,000 miles, I'd run from this thing. I would never buy one with that kind of mileage unless the engine had been done over. Okay, soaked a while. Now we're going to spray the rest of the can in. You want to use the whole can. But you notice when we walk around here, you don't see much smoke coming out. And in this case, it's a good thing. This engine obviously was rebuilt because there isn't that much buildup. If you got a lot of buildup, you're gonna get a lot of smoke. Guess what happens as the carbon cleans off? It smokes as it burns. This one's actually pretty clean inside. We'll still finish the can though. Now you'll often find the check engine light will come on or flash on and off while you're doing this. That's normal. When I'm done, I'm gonna do a scan of the car anyways and shut off any codes, because as you're putting this cleaner in, it's cleaning the car. It's going to run off kilter. It'll run too rich, too lean. So you got to reset all the settings once you're done cleaning it if you want to make sure the light won't come back on. We'll put the hose and the clamps back on. Got to do a little wiggling. We'll get the old scan tool out, plug it in right here. It's linking itself up. Now it has a pending misfire code because we put all that cleaner in that misfire. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to freeze frame, erase trouble codes. Now they're erased and there's no more codes. So we'll look at live data. You can see this crazy thing saying it's subtracting all this fuel. We'll drive it first. You got to drive around a good 10-15 minutes to clear everything out. Now it's a decent running runabout. It's relatively high. You get a good view. And being a small light car, it handles pretty good in the twisties. It's kind of a fun little car to drive around. You feel like you have good control. It's certainly not a race car, as you're going to find out. We got to stop. Here we go. You can hear it rev up. It shifts good still. And it goes, but it's certainly not a race car. It's fast enough to keep up with traffic. There's no arguing that. And you want to get close to 40 miles a gallon driving on a highway, hey, you're going to expect a little bit less acceleration. You're floored. It doesn't throw you in the back of the seat, but it does run. And actually, if you put it in manual, hey, it downshifts pretty good. Upshifts, real smooth. And that's a transmission with 150,000 miles on it. No rocket ship, but decent, kind of fun to drive around in the twisties. It is a relatively light car, bit of a boxy ride and bumpy, but hey, what do you expect? This thing's as square as can be. And it is an Asian car, so freezing cold air conditioning. So overall, pretty decent car, but now that we've driven a while, let's look at the real data. As you can see, the long-term fuel is only 3% now, so it's not that big. It's an older car. It's going to be a little of the stuff worn, but it was way up there, 14, 15. You have to road test them a while. It'll probably even go down further when you drive it more. Short-term fuel trim is 99.2. 100% is perfect, so, hey, pretty good shape. Let's go a little further with the enhanced data. Here you go with the live enhanced data. Everything's looking pretty good. So basically, with 150,000 miles, it runs good. Look, the AC's on. Gear shifter's not shaking at all. Now, of course, running that good probably has to do with my brilliant cleaning of the GDI system. Now you know how you can clean them. And a couple adapters and some electrical tape. It's not rocket science. Maintain your cars, they can last a long time. Even a Kia, though this is on its second engine. Realize that. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.